Support for this podcast comes from the law firm of Davis Malm. Whether you're a developer, property owner, manager, or commercial tenant, their real estate attorneys know the lay of the land, not just the law. Learn more at davismalm.com.
WBUR Podcasts, Boston.
I'm Daryl C. Murphy, and you're listening to The Common. Listeners, if you have been riding the 23, 28, or the 29 MBTA buses, enjoying that fare-free transit service, I have some bad news. As of March 1st, the funding for the fare-free pilot program that made it possible for you to board those buses without paying runs out. Now, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu has pledged to find more money to keep those bus routes that run through Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan free. But if that falls through, riders will have to once again dig in their pockets to ride those buses. The fare-free fate of these routes is another flashpoint in the debate in Massachusetts over whether it makes sense to charge transit riders, particularly those who are financially struggling. Boston Globe transportation reporter and friend of The Common, Taylor Dolven, recently did a piece about all of this, and she is here to break it all down for us. Taylor, it is so great to have you in studio, no less.
Thanks for having me, Daryl.
So, Taylor, the fare-free pilot program with the 23, 28, and 29 bus routes got its start under Mayor Kim Janey in 2021. From that point, tell us more about this program and how it evolved.
Michelle Wu has been advocating for eliminating fares entirely on the MBTA since 2019. And so as a way to try that out under Mayor Kim Janey and then under Mayor Michelle Wu, the city reimbursed the MBTA for lost fare revenue on those bus lines and made it so people didn't have to pay to ride them. And they wanted to really do this as a proof of concept, right? They wanted to prove to the T that if the T eliminates fares, more people will ride the bus, travel will be faster, there will be a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And what they found was mostly it accomplished those goals. But the T still isn't sold on this concept. After 2 years of fare-free service on these three lines, the MBTA is saying if this pilot is to continue, that the city will have to put forward the funds again. The T isn't willing to fund fare-free service.
How is the MBTA thinking about this? Like, what's their reasoning for not wanting to continue this program?
So the mayor believes that this has successfully made the case for fare-free service and should be enough evidence to really move forward on the state funding fare-free bus service and expanding it. What the T says is that fare revenue from bus riders is a really important revenue source. The T last fiscal year made about $79 million from fares from bus riders. That's a small sliver of the T's total operating budget, but, it's not nothing. So the MBTA is moving forward instead with a low-income fare. So that means the MBTA is going to be offering half-price fare for adults with low incomes. And this is the first time the T's done this. Advocates have been pushing for this for years, and it looks like the T is going to roll this out in the spring. What the mayor really hoped for is that there would be a low-income fare for people on other modes and that the MBTA would be moving toward making all MBTA buses fare-free. And that's not what we're seeing happening. The T is really choosing this low-income fare over fare-free service.
There's also the new fare collection system that the T has been working on that, if I understand correctly, costs up to $1 billion?
Yes. So I think that it's really important to remember that because a lot of this advocacy for fare-free service really started when the T moved forward with this $1 billion contract for a new fare collection system. Advocates and the mayor were saying, why are we going to spend $1 billion improving the way we collect fares when we could save that money, eliminate fare boxes, and increase ridership? That was really the argument. There's a lot we don't know about the status of the new fare collection system. It's years behind schedule. The MBTA told me they've only spent $20 million on it. By the end of the contract, the T will owe around $1 billion for it. That's the contract they agreed to. So that's very much still in the works and was the origin of the debate kind of over fare-free service.
What do you gain when people don't have to pay?
Yeah, I think the way we've seen this play out really successfully is at smaller transit agencies in Massachusetts. So the Merrimack Valley Regional Transportation Authority rebranded MEVA recently. In Lawrence, they were facing a really tough decision back in 2021. They needed to spend, I think, around $150,000 to update their fare collection system. And if they had invested that money, they were only going to be getting back 8 cents for every fare dollar they collected. And so the administrator and the board at the time said, this is just not worth it. It's not worth it to spend this money on collecting fares when we could just eliminate fares entirely. And so that's exactly what they've done. Across their entire bus system and paratransit service, no fares have been collected for 2 years. And they're going to be, with the state's help, expanding that going forward. The fares are going to continue to be suspended, I think, for the next at least year. So that sort of financial benefit of not having to pay for maintenance on the fare boxes, not having to pay for a money storage room, for the software that goes with collecting fares, all of that went into their decision as sort of money saved. They've also done a lot to improve service and make the bus a more attractive option for people, and have seen ridership really skyrocket since they eliminated fares.
We're going to take a break, but we'll be right back.
Politics has never been stranger or more online, which is why the politics team at Wired is making a new show, Wired Politics Lab. It's all about how to navigate the endless stream of news and information and what to look out for. Each week on the show, we'll dig into far-right platforms, AI chatbots, influencer campaigns, and so much more. Wired Politics Lab launches Thursday, April 11th. Follow the show wherever you get your podcasts.
And we are back with Taylor Dolven from the Boston Globe. So Taylor, what do critics of fare-free transit service have to say?
Critics of fare-free service really insist that the way to get more people to ride transit is to make it reliable and frequent. That the barrier to getting people who could otherwise drive to take the train or the bus or the commuter rail or any other route is to make sure those trains and buses are coming really frequently, moving really fast. And that's something the T hasn't succeeded at yet. What we've seen at smaller regional transit authorities across the state is that some have been able to both eliminate fares and improve service. It takes a lot more money, but it is possible to do both. We'll have to see if either of those move forward at the T. The T is still operating at really reduced service compared to before the pandemic, and riders, even on those fare-free lines, are really eager to see service restored.
What does the state have to say about all of this, particularly our governor, Governor Maura Healey?
Yeah, so Governor Healey campaigned on creating a low-income fare for adults at the MBTA, which appears to be happening and moving forward, and creating what she called a pathway for fare-free bus service statewide. So that would include the T. We're not seeing fare-free bus service move forward at the T, at least not yet. Right now, I think the T is facing a really, really difficult financial picture. Come this summer, the MBTA's expenses are going to be $180 million above their revenues. And that gets even more bleak come next year when that budget hole is more than $600 million. So I think the state's being really cautious about how to make sure people have more access to transit while safeguarding these fare revenues. It's not to say the T, will never consider fare-free bus service down the line, but they're not moving forward with it now. The bigger picture here and what this debate is really centered around is how to fund the MBTA.
Yeah.
The MBTA needs way, way, way more money than it currently has. And so whether that money should come from users of the systems or, taxes of a bigger pool of people is sort of the debate here.
Now, advocates in the city have been pushing for a reduced fare program, but is there any opposition to that?
Boston has now a seat on the MBTA oversight board, and that's new. Her name is Mary Skelton Roberts, the Boston's representative, and she's been really outspoken at meetings where this low-income fare has been discussed, raising the issue of why are we requiring poor people to prove that they're poor in order to access this benefit. She's called it undignified, and she's really urged the T to look at how much more it would cost to just eliminate fares and what the benefits would be for people who are in that low income bracket and not having to go through the hoops of, proving their income to access this. What the T has said is that the system they're setting up would only take 5 minutes. It could be done online. Very few people would have to verify anything in person. But she's been really adamant about forcing the T to really take a look at what it would cost to go fare-free and what benefits exist there that a low-income fare can't provide.
Now, to come back to the 23, 28, and 29 bus routes, Mayor Wu has pledged to keep that program going. Can she do it?
So, yeah, she's been really, really wanting to reassure riders. She told me, we're not going to pull the rug out from under residents who've come to rely on fare-free service on these lines for 2 years. I know going out talking to riders, there was a lot of concern. A lot of people didn't even realize that this was temporary. They've been using these buses for 2 years now and really expected this to be a permanent change. She has said she's going to come up with the money. The fare-free pilot over the last 2 years cost the city about $8 million. She's adamant that funding will be in place and that people will not be charged. She wants to continue the pilot for another 2 years.
So what's next from here?
What's next from here is the city and the T have a month to come up with an agreement about how to keep the pilot going forward. I talked to Mayor Michelle Wu last week, and like I said, she was really optimistic that this would be happening. She was committed to finding the funds. It's also important to note, the T is allowing Boston to keep this going. The T could very easily say, no, we're not convinced by the results, and we don't want to even allow Boston to reimburse us for fare revenue. That's an option. And instead, they're at least agreeing to having Boston keep this afloat. So we'll be looking for what that agreement looks like, how much money Boston's going to put forward here, and see if they can get this wrapped up by the March 1st deadline.
Got it. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for coming through and talking to us about this.
It's great to be here.
Oh, yeah. And that's our show for today. Thank you so much for listening to The Common. If you want to get in touch with us, hit us up on Instagram at WBUR The Common, or send us an email at thecommon@wbur.org. I'm Daryl C. Murphy, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.